Om Shuklambaradharam Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarvabhignopashantaye Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Me Sada येनाक्षरसमाम्नायम् अधिगम्य महेश्वरात् कृत्स्नं व्याकरणं प्रोक्तं तस्मै पाणिनये नमः वाक्यकारं वररुचिं भाष्यकारं पतञ्जलिं पाणिनिं सूत्रकारं च प्रणतोऽस्मि मुनित्रयम् वागर्थाविव सम्पृक्तौ वागर्थः प्रतिपत्तये जगतः पितरौ वन्दे पार्वती परमेश्वरौ ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ. Namaste everyone, welcome to class. It's nice to see everyone healthy and here. I'll just share my screen with you. Oh, not that one. This one. Great. Okay, so I have a new tool today. So I'm using an iPad also, so you might see me look down a lot. So that's the iPad that I'm looking at. So what we had for our workbook, for our warm-up exercise, I told you to look at workbook page 61. And so that's in addition. So that's a different book than the book one that we usually use. Now there, it has a good overview of all the different vibhaktis. So if you look on page 86, book one, page 86, there's a good overview of all the different vibhakti arthas. But we will look at that, maybe next class as we conclude. We're just going to finish up our 7th vibhakti here. So what we'll do is I'll share Rama Shabda and we can chant our Rama Shabda because we're almost at the end here of our 7 vibhaktis. So you can chant along with me. Ramaha, Ramo, Ramaha, Ramam, Ramo, Raman. Third case, Ramena, Ramabhyam, Ramaihi. Fourth case, Ramaya, Ramabhyam, Ramebhyah. Fifth case, Ramat, Ramabhyam, Ramebhyah. Sixth case, Ramasya, Ramayoho, Ramanam. Seventh case, Rame, Ramayoho, Rameshu. Then Sambodhana, He Rama, He Ramo, He Ramaha. Okay. So hopefully this is becoming more and more familiar. We spent quite a bit of time, but this is the one of the fundamental building blocks. A lot of the language is based on this Akaranta Pullinga. Okay, so let's see, we're having some overlap here. Okay, so what we'll do is we're going to continue with our 7th case. Sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties here. All right, so in our 6th case, just to recap our 6th case, we saw that 6th case was connected with Sambandha Shashti. That was the main one. Now Sambandha isn't a karaka, it's a non-karaka. So all of the ones in Shashti Vibhakti are non-karaka, but the main one we see there is Sambandhe Shashti. And then also we see nirdharane shashti. So sambandha first is a relationship, but usually a relationship in the form of possession. So devadattasya griham. Griham, home, devadattasya, of devadatta. So it's usually that relationship of possession between two nouns. Nirdharane shashti, on the other hand, is with amongst a group, you're choosing one thing. Okay, so bala nam, among all the children, Ramaha jeshtaha. Rama is the oldest. So among the group, we do one. Now, in the seventh case, right, we saw that adhikaranam is the main karaka that's connected. Okay, so notice how sixth case we didn't have a main karaka listed, but seventh case we do. Now this is page 84 in our book, page 84. So on page 84, we're reminded about how adhikaranam is the karaka connected to the seventh case. So reminder of what a karaka is, it's a factor related to an action, right? So it always has to be connected to the action word, and only when it's connected to the action word or the verb, then it has its status. Okay, so when we see a word connected to a verb that indicates a location, then we call that adhikarana. Now, here we saw in our last class that this karaka can be in terms of desha, place, kala, time, and vishaya, subject matter. So we can say Devadatta is in, let's say, right? Devadatta is in Boston. So there it's the location in terms of place. Or we can say Devadatta at there, the locus is in terms of time. And then we can also have subject matter. So we'll see this example here. Let me pull it up. So here's an example of desha, right? Devadatta cooks in the kitchen. Taha mahanase pachati. Devadatta cooks in the kitchen. So mahanase, we see that 7-1 case, they're in terms of spatial loci. Example number 2, also a spatial location, right? But here, so I brought this is not on your page, so don't be confused. This is not on your page, but here's an example of where it's vishaya, where the locus is in terms of the subject. In or with reference to moksha, he has desire. So how I would say this in Sanskrit is mokshe, just like rame, right? Mokshe, saha ichha asti, right? So he has an ichha, a desire, where? Mokshe, in moksha. So here, the desire with reference to the action of having, right? That having is in or with reference to a subject matter or an abstract noun a lot of times. So here it's a, but it can also be, when we say vishaya, it can also be a locus of interest. Okay, so the example you'll see there on the screen is Devadattaha putre snihati. So snihati feels affection. So Devadatta feels affection where? Putre, in his son. So it's the locus of an interest in this example. But it also can be a locus of a subject matter, just like what we saw in the last example, where it's moksha, in moksha. It's a subject matter that we're we're entering into. Now, when that adhikaranam is used in particularly for a locus of interest or subject matter, then we call that Vishaya Saptami. Okay, it's conventionally called Vishaya Saptami, but what we need to note is that Vishaya Saptami is just one subset of Adhikarana, of Adhikarane Saptami. So Adhikarane Saptami is the big box. Within that, when we're talking about locus in terms of subject matter, called Adhikarana Saptami, there's no problem with that, right? Because it's one within the other. Does that make sense? Let me know if that's not making sense. I can repeat myself in a different way. So, right, so we have, right, Adhikarane Saptami, and within that, we have Vishaya Saptami. Oh, it got zoomed in on the screen, so you can't see what I'm writing, huh? There we go. So within Adhikarana Vishaya, so it's a subset. So whether you call it one or the other, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so now moving forward. Now the non-Karaka Vibhakti, right? So we saw the Karaka Vibhakti was Adhikarana. That's one of the Karakas. Now the non-Karaka related to this Vibhakti is what we call Sati Saptami. Sati Saptami. Okay, so Sati is used to indicate a particular phrase. So when I see the word Sati, what it usually indicates is the word when. So when there is blank, so for example, it says, Putre Sati Devadattaha Grihe Tishtati. So let's look at the right side of that sentence first, right? Devadatta Tishtati. Devadatta stays where? Grihe. Grihe. So can you tell me what is the of the seventh case of Grihe? So the question, I think I was breaking up there. So the question is, you see the sentence there, Putre Sati Devadattaha Grihe Tishtati. The word Grihe, so Devadatta stays at home. Grihe is which vibhakti artha? Is it Adhikarane or is it Sati Saptami? Yeah, so we're seating. Don't use private chat for now because I'm not able to see the private chat. So just use the public chat so I can see everyone's answer. Yeah, so everyone who answered is Adhikarane because he stays at home. But now let's look at the left part of the sentence. Now it says Putre Sati. Sati is when. When there is S-O-N, then Devadatta Grihe Tishtati. Devadatta stays at home. So that when clause is indicated by the word Sati. When there is blank, that's when we say Sati, that's what's indicated there. Okay. The second example is when A is A. So this is a little bit more complex version of this. So we say putre pushte sati devadattaha tushtaha bhavati. So let's look again at the right side of the sentence. Devadattaha tushtaha bhavati. Devadatta bhavati is tushta, happy. When is he happy? So you notice how there's 2 7-1s here. There's 2 7-1s. So we plug in those 2 7-1s for A. So when the putra is pushta, nourished. When putra, son, is pushta, nourished, then devadattaha tushtaha bhavati. Devadatta is happy. Please let me know if you have any questions on this. So this is called Sati Saptami. It can be a little bit complicated. So I wanted to show that here. Let's look at the chat, see if anything is there. So there's one question from earlier. Is non-karaka not related to the verb? Vibhakti artha for non-karaka is what? So non-karaka, what we mean by non-karaka is, yeah, it doesn't, it doesn't depend on the verb. So for example, here, sati saptami, right? Sati, when we have sati, then you know it's going to be no connection to really the verb there. It doesn't get that status based on the verb. It gets the status based on something else. And that something else is what we call non-karaka, right? So another example, right? Tritiya vibhakti, right? We use heto tritiya. Heto tritiya, it means third case in the sense of a cause. Now that heto has no connection to necessarily the verb. It doesn't get that status based on the verb. It gets that status just inherently because of the intention of the speaker. Okay. And Harprasad ji, you have a question?
Yes, Mahodaya. Can I say non-karaka as nakaraka?
Yeah, you can say, or you would say akaraka, a.
Oh.
That na goes away, so it'd be akaraka. Just like, let's think of an example. Any example. So we can say anatma. So sometimes you say an or you say a. So anatma means not atma.
Anatma, yeah.
So here we can say when it's starts with you get an, starts with a consonant.
Breaking up.
When it starts with a consonant, then you get a. So akaraka.
Oh, okay. Akaraka, okay.
Gave the example here. Okay.
Bhaya, abhaya. This is Suresh. Bhaya and abhaya.
Abhaya is correct. Yeah, abhaya also is a good example where you get in right. Okay, so let's go back to our Sati Saptami. So we'll actually do now. So here. Now, we need to know that sati, is it only showing up on part of your screen? You can't see the whole sentence? Let me try to fix that. 1 second. There we go. Okay. So sati is the 7th case declension of the word sat, actually. So sati is not an indeclinable. It's actually declinable. So the word sat when we put it in seventh case, it's called sati. So sat literally just means being. So when such is being, we would say. Now, you'll notice that this will come in different forms based on what it's qualifying. So you see in masculine, for example, when I'm saying vishaye sati, so this is on page 85 of your book, okay? Vishaye sati. So they're both in 7-1. So sati is going to be in 7-1. Now you see vishayoho satoho. Because the word is qualifying as 7-2, then sati will also be put in 7-2. Satoho. Now you see 7-3, vishayeshu, and then sat in 7-3 is satsu. Now notice how it's a little bit different declension than Rama Shabda. It's slightly different because it ends with takara, sat. Right? This is the word sat. So because of the ending letter, it has slightly different declension, but it's very similar, right? Vishaye sati, but vishayoho satoho sounds very similar. Vishayeshu satsu. So the whole point here is that you'll see it in different forms based on what it's qualifying. Luckily, we're not making sentences, right? We're only reading the sentences. So you'll just notice that they'll be in different forms. In neuter, so it also changes depending on gender. Now we haven't learned the other genders, so it's not as important for us to go into that right now, okay? Now there's a good question in the chat if you want to read that. And the answer is the word sati may or may not be present. Now this is the Sanskrit Devata is pulling a fast one on us. So actually, sat is usually there. It's a lot of times there, especially in our workbook or exercises. But sometimes it won't be present. Now the question is, how do you know then it's sati saptami? You know it's sati saptami because of the intention of basically when you're translating the sentence, it'll make more sense when you use sati saptami as opposed to adhikarani saptami. This also shows the importance of a teaching lineage, right? The teacher will tell you whether it's adhikarane saptami or sati saptami. And then because that changes the interpretation of the sentence. And that interpretation is then passed down in a lineage, right? If you didn't follow a lineage, you can take the same word and have a different meaning. And this is how things get interpreted and get changed over time. That's why having a teaching lineage is important. Otherwise, you might end up somewhere in the spiritual marketplace a little bit lost, right? All right. But for our examples, they usually will be there, a lot of times. Now, you'll see at the bottom of the screen. Now, this is, it's not clearly shown on the screen right now, but it's on page 85. It's on page 85 there at the, and it says, the sentences can be paraphrased in yada tada structure. Now, yada means when, and tada means then. So instead of sati, we could say yada. So yada putraha bhavati, tada devataha tattaha grihe tishtati. So when the child is there, then Devadatta stays at home. So it's just instead of sati, you can use yada, but let's not make it more complicated. Let's just stick with sati saptami for now, okay? But just note that sometimes instead of sati saptami, you can use yada tada format. All right, let's look at an example. So you can open up your book to page 176 in the back of the book. This is the homework, and we're just going to do a sati saptami example. And then if we get time, we'll do another adhikarane example, and then we'll end there. So what we're going to look at is we're going to actually look at number 1. Vedaha loke drishte. Now let's close what's blocking it. Yeah. Vedaha loke drishyante. Yeah, there's a question. Yeah, Neelamaji, go ahead.
In this book, when the example is A in A, it said Putre Pushte Sati Devadatta Tushta Bhavati. Under that, the example 2, Yada Putra Pushta Bhavati Tada Devadatta Tushta Bhavati.
Yeah.
So this is not seventh case example, right? Just wanted to.
No. This is instead, if you don't want to use Sati Saptami or that seventh case, you could use it then in a Yada Tada.
Both sentences mean the same then.
Both sentences mean the same. Yeah.
Okay. One is, Prathama, and the other one is seventh case.
Yeah. So this is it's the same meaning as the sentence we saw earlier on that page.
Correct. Okay. Thanks.
Yep. Okay, so going back to that example, let's go up. All right, now let's move this slightly. All right. So our Tingantam, we can see at the end of the sentence there, right? It's pretty clear, right? It's Drishyante. Dhatuhu, right? Drish dhatu. Ting pratyaya, right? This is lat lakaraha. Present tense. It's active voice, kartari prayoga. And it is third 3. We see that ante. Just kidding, made a mistake, right? And I wanted to see if anyone caught me there. We see 2 things. We see a yakara and we see atmanepada. So we need to go back, we need to cross this out, and we're going to say it's karmani prayoga. It's passive voice. Right? It's karmani prayoga. So it's seen. What is seen? So we want to go to our first case. Wait, Bedaha. Sorry, so let me do that. Bedaha. Now Bedaha Pratikadikam is the Shabda. It's Akaranta Punlinga. Suprataya it's 1-3. Prathama Vibhakti Bahuvachanam Vibhaktyataha. Because we're in Karmani Prayoga, we're going to be Karmani Prathama. Oh, sorry, this is not a Sati Saptami example. I chose the wrong one, but it's okay. We'll continue with this. We'll finish on time still. Okay, loke. So the next word, loke. Let's give us another subantam there. So sorry, it's all jammed up on the screen there, but you'll see subantam. Let's move this down a little bit. Okay, subantam is, we're going to look at loke, pratipadika, loka. It's akaranta pullinga. It's 7th case, pratama vibhakti, vibhakti arthaha. So Veda means differences. So differences, Veda, are seen. Now, where are they seen? Divisions or differences are seen where? Loke. So this is Adhikarane Saptami. Okay, so this Adhikarane Saptami, and we have to write to where? Sorry, this should be Saptami to Drishyante. Okay, so translation is the divisions or differences are seen loke, in the world. in the world, right? We see differences or divisions between people and objects and things. There, you can see it on the screen there now, all the way at the bottom there. So divisions, things are seen in the world. Okay, so now let's do a Sati Saptami example quickly. This is number 5. Tyage sati mokshaha vidyate. Number 5. Tyage sati mokshaha vidyate. Oh. All right. So Tingantam vidyate, all the way at the end there. Dhatuhu is going to be vid dhatu. Now there's 2 vid dhatus. One that we're using here is vid for A to B. Ting pratyaya lat lakaraha kartari or karmani prayoga, and this is third one. Now this is a little bit tricky. It looks exactly like karmani because you have a yakara and you have atmanepada. But fourth gana gives you a yakara and atmanepada gives you that ekara. So this could be kartari or karmani and they'll look exactly the same. So here we'll take kartari prayoga. Active voice, so means it's is. What is moksha? Pratipadika, it's moksha shabda, akaranta punlinga. I'm just taking some shortcuts for the sake of time. Supratyaya, it's 1-1. And it's kartari prayoga we took. It can be karmani prayoga, but it'll make more sense because the verb to be can't really be in passive voice. Or you can say was is past tense, but passive voice you can't really use properly here. It won't work as well. So we're going to take kartari pratama to vidyate. Okay, now we have some other verbs or some other nouns there. Let's close this. Let's just do this. Okay, so now I have mokshaha. So we saw mokshaha. Now let's look at sati, because now we go right to left. So sati. This is sat. It's takaranta, and it can be any gender. So we say sarvanama. I'm not going to put a gender for now. I'll just write sarva nama, meaning that it can take all 3 genders as well. Supratyaya, this is 7-1. And vibhakti artha, we don't need to add one here. We'll just leave this blank. But we look at the next word, tyage, which is connected to sati. This is tyaga shabda, akaranta, pullinga, supratyaya 7-1, just like rame. And here it's connected to sati. So we say sati saptami. Oh. There we go. So you can see it there on the screen there. So what it says is moksha vidyate. Moksha vidyate. Moksha is there or exists when tyaga or renunciation is. When there, moksha is there. It's a when then clause sort of thing. Sate tyage sati, when there is renunciation, moksha vidyate, there is moksha, or we can say moksha is there. Either one. So probably better translation is when there is renunciation, then there is moksha. So somebody have any questions there? Let's just say Shanti and I'll take questions while we're taking a break, okay? Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. So there we saw a quick example of both Adhikarana Saptami and Sati Saptami. So the homework will be page 176, the 7th case homework there in the back of the book. Okay, did anyone have any questions? I think Har Prasad ji, yep. Sorry, can you start? I can't hear you. Can you unmute yourself there? There we go.
Yeah. In fourth Gana Dhatus,
Yes.
we add yakara to the dhatu to make an anga.
Correct.
Now, if it is an atmanepadi, is there any words with two yas appearing? Did I make myself clear?
Sorry, you were saying, is there any dhatu that ends with a yakara, then another yakara will be added to that? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, in making it a karmani,
Yeah.
make it a
For it.
karmani prayoga, will there be any places where there'll be two yas?
No, there will not be two yakaras unless the dhatu maybe ends with the yakara.
Yeah. Oh, dhatu. Okay, if dhatu ends with a yakara, and
Then
if,
we would add another yakara in karmani prayoga. So then you might get two yas there. But otherwise, if the dhatu does not end with yakara, then you will only have one yakara all the time.
all right, okay.
Okay, so we'll take a few minute break. We'll come back at 8:12 and we'll get started with our class.
Yes, sir.